couple NBA moves going down right before the draft. Obviously, the headliner was Russell Westbrook to the Los Angeles Lakers, joining LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But small deal going down here as well. Landry Shamet traded to the Phoenix Suns for Javon Carter. And also the Suns gave up the 29th pick in this deal here. So Landry Shamet, we know he's a good role player. A guy could come off the bench or start for you at the shooting guard position. He could hit threes. He could pass the basketball decently as well. And right here, the Brooklyn Nets, they just have too many scorers on their team. So right here in this deal, they get a first-round pick, which they didn't have after obviously gutting their roster with picks in the James Harden deal last season. So right here, Shamet, he lands with the Phoenix Suns, and I could definitely see him fit in Monty Williams' system as a good player off the bench to shoot threes with high energy. And he could score the basketball last season, 9.3 points a game, 1.8 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 2.1 threes a game, 84% from the foul line, and 40% from the field. So Landry Shamet, he went out there and he put up decent numbers for this Net team. But like I mentioned, there's no role for him now with the Nets, and his shooting percentage was very low last season. But he goes back to the Western Conference after spending most of his career with the Los Angeles Lakers before going to Brooklyn last season. So as far as fantasy basketball goes, Phoenix is a decent landing spot, but he's a player that I don't think will have really fantasy value. He's better real life player than a fantasy basketball player, and he'll probably be a 6th or 7th man off the bench over there in Phoenix. And we'll see if Chris Paul resigns, which I definitely think he will. And we saw other pieces Phoenix get later in the season there. They got Torrey Craig. He was a pretty good role player. Jamison Crowder, not bad as well. And Cameron Payne as well. So a lot of guards and forward combo guys over there for the Phoenix Suns. And right here, Shamet, he could either be a good one in there or a guy lost in the shuffle. But I don't think he'll really have fantasy value, at least out of the gate. So he's a player that most likely won't go in fantasy drafts. And now on to Javon Carter, who the Brooklyn Nets get. The Nets, they're trying to get more defensive-minded players to come off the bench. And we knew that was going to be the problem when the Nets put that big three together last season. Obviously, Kyrie Irving, who you could never count on. Kevin Durant, he played his heart out in the playoffs, but it wasn't enough to beat Giannis and the Bucks in that series. And then you saw James Harden, who I'll give him credit. He had a bad hamstring injury, and he went out there and still gave it his all, but he just couldn't get the job done. So now Carter, they add him to the roster, and we'll see if he'll have any value for this team. But like I mentioned, he's going to be a player that comes off the bench as a backup point guard. And last season, he didn't do anything at all as a third stringer over there in Phoenix. 4.1 points a game, 1.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 57% from the line, and 42% from the field. So Carter, he was a first-round pick a few seasons ago with the Suns, but he really hasn't panned out. And right now in Brooklyn, I don't really see him carving out a role. And I think the Nets, they're going to bring in a lot of veterans as this offseason starts in the next couple of days. A lot of guys are going to want to join Brooklyn and try to win a championship. And definitely the Nets are one of the favorites in the Eastern Conference. So we're going to see vets go there. And Carter, he'll probably get lost in the shuffle as far as fantasy basketball goes. So he's a guy that's going to be a third or fourth stringer on this Net roster and not really have fantasy value or NBA value right now. He'll probably sit at the end of the bench. So right here, the Phoenix Suns, they try to improve the bench with another three-point shooter, trading for Landry Shamet of the Brooklyn Nets. And we'll see what he does in the upcoming 2021-2022 season for the Suns and if he has any fantasy value.